p.m. So at this time, we're ready to begin this afternoon's board meeting. The school board meeting of June 2nd, 2020 is now called to order, and the time is 3:11 p.m. Following the recommendation of Governor DeSantis and the Florida Department of Education, this meeting will be held virtually, streamed live, and will be posted to the district YouTube channel upon completion of the meeting. We would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential, and of the district's vision to be a world-class school system. This afternoon's agenda includes the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, one acknowledgement, public comment, consent action items, which include 3 items under executive services, one of which is for good cause. Dr. Adkins, please provide an explanation for this one item.
Okay, the good cause item is the approval to waive the requirements of Board Policy 1.20 relating to board advisory committees, allowing them to meet throughout the summer if they so choose.
Thank you, Dr. Adkins. As presiding officer, I find that there is good cause to add this one item to the agenda. Also included in the agenda are 4 items under academic services, one of which is for good cause. Dr. Adkins, please provide an explanation for this one item.
Yeah, this item has to do with the second revision of high school graduation schedule so that we can do the in-person graduation at the end of July. So it requires board approval of the new schedule.
Thank you. And as presiding officer, I find there is good cause to add this item to the agenda. Also included in the agenda are 4 items under business services, 4 items under human resources, 2 items under information systems, 11 items under operations, as well as 1 item under attorney recommendations, 3 items for public hearing, and 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Ms. Vaughn and seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Please record your vote. Okay. Ms. Johnson, do you have a vote?
Ms. Morgan, may I vote for you? The vote carries 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, the vote carries 7-0. This afternoon, Mrs. Gittens will deliver the invocation, after which Mrs. Patrico will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Gittens, please deliver the invocation at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We ask, Lord, that you just give us, not just as a school board or a school district, but as a nation, healing, peace, love, and understanding. Help us, Lord, to be able to stop and think before we speak, to stop and think before we act, and to remember to do it all in loving kindness. We ask for protection for our country and for those that are going through difficult times. We thank you for all of our children, for keeping them safe throughout this year. As we look plan for new year, we ask your blessings on our plans and on our future and on the future of everyone. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Patrica, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
So I think Mr. Eldon is going to put a flag up on the screen so that we can all
Wonderful.
feel free to stand for the pledge if you're comfortable. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Thank you, Ms. Patrica. The character education word for June is cooperation, working together for a common purpose. The quote is, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." Helen Keller. I think Mr. Eldon, is there a display on the screen? If so, it was created by Taylor Myers, a rising 12th grade student at Cypress Lake High School. We have no recognitions this afternoon. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Ms. Dupree Bruno, please address the item of public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted it in the basket before the meeting began, you will be called in the order of the cards submitted. If you did not submit a card but still wish to address the board this evening, the chair will give you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning comments are posted at the back of the room. The board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the end of the public comment period, the board chair will address the assignment of any concerns or requests made during public comment to the superintendent. Speakers and those attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. Attacks on individuals or abusive comments are prohibited. In addition to clapping, booing, hissing are prohibited. Speakers who fail to follow rules regarding the forum should be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the lectern per board policy 1.11, and the time per speaker, I believe, will be 2 minutes. And I believe we have right around 20 speakers in the audience to speak.
Okay.
And if the first speaker would please come forward to the microphone. And if you would please state your name and you may begin speaking.
My name is Leroy Nottingham. I was born and raised in the county of Lee. I went to Fort Myers High School and graduated there and went to the University of Tennessee on a football scholarship. I worked for the city of Fort Myers for 31 years, and 25 of them years I was the president of the union. So I'd like to think that everybody ought to have a chance to come before their accuser and state their name or whatever, or they can be ready to not be demoted like Miss Vivian was. I've known Vivian all my life. Her dad and me went to high school together. I think there's one thing that the school board does and I don't agree with, and that is zero tolerance. I think it's a little bit unconstitutional that you all, it says in the Constitution, you have your say in anything you get accused of. I would please ask that you be promoted Ms. Vivian to her statue as vice president. I thank you for this time. God bless you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may make a point of order, there's a loud, almost whining sound coming through. I don't know if that's just my audio, but
There was something coming through, but it appears that it was connected to the gentleman's hearing device. So I hopefully it won't happen again. Will the next speaker please come forward? And please make sure you dropped your blue card in the basket. And if you could please state your name.
Sarah Adwell.
You may proceed, ma'am.
I'm just going to read just a little piece of paper I have here. Despite there not being a single district policy that prohibits an administrator from responding to a safety concern, despite one member of this board admitting that any training given does not cover the situation at Harn Marsh, despite hearing from someone who used to run these trainings saying the same thing to the board, despite multiple teachers telling the board that they are not being told now, do not know how to respond if there is a weapon in their class. The board hasn't yet of reinstating Vivian Gertuz to her position as administrating principal at Prince Marsh, and more importantly, have not addressed fixing the lack of the policy and training. Instead, members of the board have emailed concerned citizens that they are waiting on superintendent's recommendation. Remember that this superintendent and governor by you, and it is your job to create the policies for this district.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Will the next individual please step forward? Make sure that you put your blue card in the basket. Please state your name.
Norman Walker, pastor church where Miss Vivian goes to church. I've known her family for, I guess, 4 generations. I come today to speak in her behalf. I listened as the young lady prayed the prayer as we began, thanking God give us wisdom that we can see and we can understand and have common sense to make the right decisions. I don't understand that we live in an America and we're in a place that when you do good, you're punished for it. And I think you as leaders need to look at this very carefully before you make your decisions. I voted for y'all. I want people to make the right decision. This is not about us. This is about her. Her integrity is in question. Her life, her whole livelihood can be wiped out on one decision if it's made wrong. And I would say I think you need to pray carefully that any decision that you make, because it's going to affect many lives. And I wondered, if she did nothing and lives were taken, then what would have happened to her? What would you have said to her if she did nothing and people lost their life? What kind of punishment would you have gave her then? I think this is some things you need to really think about, look at, and maybe make some changes so everybody can understand what the right protocol is. I thank you for my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please step forward, put your blue card in the basket. And please state your name.
Put my glasses on. Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Hadsock, and I've also known Vivian my whole life. Our parents were very close friends, and her mom is the only one out of 4 of them that are left. And but you know, we've known each other forever, and I know her character. I know how long she's been with the school system and her faithful employment for all these years. And as a parent, too, I send my child off to school each day, not expecting anything awful to happen, expect them to be safe. But wasn't it wonderful that on December 20th, 2019, nothing horrific happened at Harns Marsh and everyone went home safely to their families. Despite the lack of policy and admitted lack of training, Vivian Gutierrez was able to calmly and effectively take a gun from a student when she unknowingly discovered it. The board has had 5 months since this incident and 2 weeks since the public last came before you to address the obvious safety gap left by the district. You have the rare opportunity to see the gap in safety before it costs lives. Yet you have not responded to correct it. A continued failure to respond to this is going to result in children being killed. On that day, everyone will wish there was a Vivian Gutierrez there to prevent it like she did before. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the next person please step forward? Make sure that your card is in the basket. And state your name, please.
My name's Adam Sanchez. I'm here as a parent of a high school kid. I'm here as an employee of the district and most of all, a friend of Vivian. I believe that what she did was heroic. But I left here the last time with questions. One, when that call came in from wherever it came, where was the resource officer at the time? We talk about policies and procedures. Why do we have a resource officer if that call is not going to go directly to him? Okay. Two, I understand that there might have been another instance that day or thereabout where it was, thank God it was a hoax and nothing was found. But my thing is, we're talking about procedures, and me as an employee of the district, we have little classes, but they're online. They're nothing, are the procedures that she supposedly didn't take, are they physical, or is it you log in, you answer A, B, or C, and we're done? There's a difference, okay? And three, I understand that there was a teacher that was notified by students that there was a gun, whether it was a BB gun, water gun, whatnot, and he ignored it. Now, it's my understanding also that he got a letter of, oh my God. Anyway, he just got basically a slap on the hand. What my view, my personal view, is that what he did by ignoring it is far more dangerous than what Vivian did. And maybe she did not cross her T's and dot her I's, as some are saying they would do. But at the end of the day, nobody was hurt. So we're talking.
It's time, sir.
We need to relook at our procedures.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please. Make sure your blue card is in the basket. Thank you. Please state your name.
Yes, my name is Julie Martinez. Dear board members, I hope all of you and your families are healthy and safe during this unprecedented time of COVID-19 pandemic and the social unrest after the tragic death of George Floyd. As I said, my name is Julie Martinez. Some of you know me. I have been on the DAC for 4 years. I sat on the FAC for 2. I've dedicated time and energy for the betterment of the district. I was an advocate for the half-cent sales tax. But today I'm here to advocate for my children and the other students at their school. I have 3 boys who attend Orangewood Elementary. They will be entering 5th, 4th, and 1st grade. I am a volunteer at the school and I'm on campus a lot. I know that the children feel loved and understood. There's a strong sense of support and encouragement. The students know that they can achieve anything they want if they focus on their goals. And the students, more importantly, feel safe here. So what a surprise to find out that Principal Nader, who created this wonderful campus, is leaving. Our children, our students have been asked to learn at home, have had their normal daily school schedule eliminated. They have not played with their friends. They can't go to parks, the movies, sporting, extracurricular activities has all been pulled from them in their normal day. Our students miss their class trips, their school dances, and tomorrow our fifth graders will have a drive-by graduation. And they do this for the greater good of our society. And you know this, you all know that. But while some of our students have been home, they've also experienced their parents being laid off or furloughed, struggling to apply for benefits on DOE, wondering how they're going to provide for their children. The stress of this pandemic hits home for most of us while our children are home with us. I find it hard to believe that the district would approve any transfer of any principal who is engaged with their school.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. At this time, will the next speaker please move forward? Will the next speaker please move forward and put your blue card in the basket? Thank you. Please state your name.
Denise Weisberg.
Okay, you can start.
Okay, I'm here also to address the issue of the transfer of Angela Nader, the principal of Orangewood, to Edgewood Academy. I'm here to ask you to vote against this transfer. As you all know from the emails you've received, I'm one of many parents who are concerned about the transfer of Mrs. Nader at this time. And I ask again that you review our petition at change.org/Orangewood Needs Nader, which now has 649 signatures and many comments from Orangewood families in support of keeping Mrs. Nader at Orangewood. We parents are aware that internal transfers, promotions, etc., regularly occur within the district as they would in any business or organization. In typical times, we would be very sad to see Mrs. Nader go, but respect the decision from all parties involved. Would wish her well and hope her replacement could promptly fill her shoes. However, these are not typical times. Our entire country is in a holding pattern. Our children have been through so much already. We don't even know what next year will actually look like at this point. The children should not have to return to school with the major disappointment of Mrs. Nader's absence. The teachers should not have the uncertainty of the direction of new leadership, which will trickle down to the students as well. Taking our leadership during this time could have lasting detrimental effects. These statements may sound redundant to you because they've all been repeated in emails that you, along with other district leaders, have received from myself and other concerned parents. I feel up to this point, we've been shrugged off. We've been given the same stock answers that would be given at any time. I understand that you have a tremendous responsibility serving over 93,000 students, and I'm sure that comes with very difficult decisions and an inability to please everyone. I'm asking you for this, not because I think we should be the exception, but because this time period should be the exception. At this point, it should not matter who initiated this transfer or who approved it, etc. This should not be a time when overall district advancement, promotions, raises, and personal preferences should be put before the stability and well-being of our children. Stability and consistency should be the priorities at the forefront during this time of pandemic. As a voice of the people that I represent, I stand before you to vote against the transfer of Angela Nader. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please. Blue card in the basket, and then when you come up, you please state your name.
My name is Laura Bollinger.
You can go ahead.
I've been an educator in this district since 1999, and as an educator in this district, I'm asking you to right the wrong of demoting Vivian Gutierrez. She handled a student with a weapon at Harns Marsh Middle School in December to the best of her ability. You're saying that she violated district policy, but there is no policy written on that. We teach our kids every day, our own kids and our students, to own up to their mistakes. And if they make a mistake, but to learn from that mistake. So if mistakes were made, her mistakes or your mistakes, please work to fix those mistakes, but not through demotion. I'm asking you please to first reinstate Vivian Gutierrez as the vice principal at Harns Marsh Middle School. Second, to put a written policy in place. And third, train the staff and the teachers and the custodians and everybody on how to handle a student in the classroom with a weapon. Yes, we all have that shooter video that we all have to watch, but that is not training. Everybody on this board and everybody watches that video knows that is not training for a student in your classroom with a gun. That is not training for administrators in your building with a gun. So please, I ask you, just fix your mistake. Reinstate Vivian, put in a written policy, and teach that policy to us. You wouldn't expect us to teach kids geometry when they've only had multiplication, because that would be a mistake. And we couldn't fail them and kick them out of school because they made a mistake that we didn't have a policy in place. So please just reinstate her, give her her job back at our school, and then teach us what you want us and what you think we should know on how to handle a shooter or a gun in our building. Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Please put your blue card in the basket. When you come up, state your name and you may begin to speak.
Hello, my name is Presley Marie and I'm a sixth grader. I'm here to discuss the demotion of Vivian Gutierrez. I want to ask you why you would allow someone who saved lives to be demoted. I may not be an adult, but I am smart enough to know that this is not right. Please do the right thing and reinstate Vivian Gutierrez to her former position at Harns Marsh Middle School. The safety of kids must be the #1 priority, and Vivian Gutierrez kept everyone safe without breaking a single policy. There was no reason for her to be punished. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Put your blue card in the basket. State your name and then you may speak. Thank you.
My name is Jalissa Montes. I live in Lehigh Acres, and Harns Marshall is one of the schools I have one of my daughters attend. With regards to Vivian's demotion, I am just also going back and forth with everybody, indicating how it looks like the policies are not in place for this to have occurred. And unfortunately, this person that didn't know of this gun being at hand didn't take any action, and Ms. Gutierrez did. And now she's being demoted for an immediate action that, as a parent, as a school teacher, as a human being, it was no second choice of hers to just do the right thing, which is stop maybe what could have gone wrong. And in this incident, nothing went wrong thanks to her immediate action. The demotion seems a little bit too out of context for this procedure that she took upon herself to make. I feel that unfortunately it is a wrong decision. And if we all look into this a little bit further, again, mistakes do happen and we can correct them with actual policies in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please step forward, put your blue card in the basket, state your name, and then you may begin to speak.
My name is Patricia Cruz. I'm here for the character of Vivian Gutierrez. She's been a teacher or in the school system for 31 years, has never had anything against her record, and she's always worked to make sure that the students were safe. And when she had the chance to save the school from being shot up, like Parkland and the rest of the schools that we've had, you want to demote her and just take and deface her name. I think it's wrong. She's worked hard. She did the right thing. She saved a lot of lives that day. And I think that she needs to be left in her position and given an honor. And if you don't feel like giving her an honor, just give her a job. And let her say they take care of the children in those schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, blue card in the basket. State your name and you may begin to speak.
Karen Reese, good afternoon. The school board district claims that Vivian Gutierrez violated policy, and I would like to address two of them and why they completely are irrelevant. Policy 5.02 deals with the general requirements for appointment or employment. It deals with having the proper qualifications and good moral character. Stopping a shooting, a school shooting, is the epitome of having good moral character. Policy 5.26 deals with the professional standards. And again, this concerns ethics and retaining high education standards. It is completely unrelated to responding to an inactive school shooting situation. Additionally, there has been no training on how to handle the situation that occurred at Harns Marsh. The school board needs to fill this safety gap and reinstate Vivian Gutierrez to assistant principal at Harns Marsh Middle School. And I think you've had a lot of information. This is our second time coming, or I've come to speak for Vivian. I think you have every reason to reinstate her, and nobody's done anything. You haven't responded. So please respond. This is a lady that, I can't imagine being in that situation. And she's a good vice principal, and so she's a plus for you. So I ask you to reinstate Vivian Gutierrez. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Next speaker, blue card in the basket. State your name, and then you may begin to speak.
Hi, Courtney Hovis. Good afternoon. I'm here today because I have a first grader at Orange Way Elementary next year, and my daughter will be graduating through the drive-through graduation tomorrow. I'm currently the vice president of the PTA, and I have been served as president for the last 3 years, working closely with Mrs. Nader. Last week, we found out that she was to be transferred to Edgewood Academy. At any other time, this would be very sad news, but we would wish her well. During the current uncertain times we're all going through, it's an unacceptable move. Our concern is for the children at the school and the fact they deserve as much consistency as possible. The entire country is in a holding pattern due to this pandemic, and we believe our kids have already been through enough change. The children should not have to return to school with the disappointment of her being gone, nor should the teachers have to face the uncertainty of new leadership when they go back. We are asking that you vote no to the transfer of Mrs. Nader to Edgewood Academy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, blue card in the basket, please. State your name, and then you may begin to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Savannah Goodman, here regarding Vivian Gutierrez. The district claims that Vivian Gutierrez violated policy, and I would like to address 3 of them, why they are irrelevant and have not been violated. Principles of professional conduct is about ethics. It prohibits discrimination, causing embarrassment to students, and making reasonable efforts to protect students from any type of harm. Vivian protected everyone from harm when she took a gun from a student. Policy 2.03 discusses how to handle trespassers. This student was not a trespasser. Also, once the gun was discovered, he was immediately put into police custody. Policy 2.11 requires safety concerns to be reported. The policy does not state how long after the safety issue is discovered that it must be reported. Nevertheless, as soon as she found the gun that the student had as soon as she found out that the student had an actual gun, she did report it to the SRO, the principal, and the communications department. Also, nothing in this policy states that an administrator is prohibited from responding themselves. We ask that you please reinstate Vivian Gutierrez due to her character and the time she has put in with the county and her credentials. We ask that you look at all the information given to see the truth in this matter, and that with the re-election coming up, there are a lot of people who are not happy with the lack of response from this issue. So we ask you to please look at this further from us, the voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Thank you very much. State your name and you may speak.
My name is Donita Goodman, and I'm here for Vivian Gutierrez. I understand that the year 2020 has been like a bad joke, but student safety is no laughing matter. The board was addressed 2 weeks ago regarding Vivian Gutierrez and the demotion that came after she stopped a school massacre, yet no action has been taken to do the right thing. The message received by district employees is that their careers are better off if they do nothing when told that a student has a BB gun. That is because Vivian was demoted for acting while the teacher who did nothing has received no discipline. The fact that this is how the district has handled the situation is shocking. I honestly thought it was a joke when I first heard this. Fix this and reinstate Vivian Gutierrez. We have sent several messages that have come back with no response from most of you. The fact that a gun was at the school and the person that stops it was demoted is just shocking to me. If any of you were not on the board and it wasn't politics, you would be outraged. All of you that vote against this need to be voted out. You are not the people we want protecting our kids and doing the right thing. How can you be in a position and have a different set of standard and rules for you than for everybody else? Or hide behind them and only let certain things get out in public and discuss other things in private? You should be ashamed of yourself. I am still disgusted that you will not let other school employees speak without them being punished. You can say this has not happened. We all know it's true. We all know that it's still happening right now. If you have nothing to hide, then why can't these employees have the freedom to come up and speak and tell you the truth and what's going on? I can count numerous people that have agreed to go door to door passing out flyers of the board members that are up for re-election who have refused to address this and do the right thing. You've had the chance to correct what is wrong and still have chosen not to. All of you had to do what was right, and no one has done it yet. All you have to do is admit there was a mistake and make Vivian back to her position. You have taught the students that it's okay to lie and hide the truth as long as it benefits you. We are asking again that you do the right thing and reinstate Vivian to her position as principal.
Thank you, ma'am. Next individual, please put the thank you and state your name, and you may speak.
My name is Haley Gutierrez, and I'm speaking on the issue of Vivian Gutierrez. It has been admitted by this board that there is no training provided to district employees for inactive shooters. I would like the board to show the policy that prohibits administrators from responding to reports of a BB gun or other weapon on campus. As far as I am made aware, it does not exist. What does exist is policies to not leave a classroom unsupervised. Yet the teacher who left his classroom unsupervised long enough for that student to pull the gun out and point it at multiple children has received no discipline. Even though he was told about that student's actions, even though he did nothing and allowed that student to take that weapon to his next class. It has been said that the board doesn't handle personnel issues. Well, to the almost 10,000 people who have signed the petition for Vivian to be reinstated, this feels as if it's a cop-out, because this goes beyond a simple personnel issue and goes to the systematic failure of the district to provide a policy on this issue. I cannot tell you how many people have reached out to me thinking that the petition was a spam or a joke because they could not believe that it was real, that somebody was demoted for stopping a school shooting. This is really simple. There has been no training. There is no policy. There's no safety. And so there cannot be any demotion of Vivian Gutierrez. Reinstate Vivian Gutierrez and do a better job of protecting the children of Lee County by creating a clear policy and giving clear training on how to respond to inactive shooters when they are on a Lee County School District campus. Thank you.
Next speaker, go ahead and put your blue card in the basket. And then when you come up front, state your name and then you can talk, okay?
Hi, my name is Gwen.
Talk a little louder.
Hi, my name is Gwen Wallace. I am in 4th grade at Orangewood Elementary. I am against changing the administrators for the 2020 to 2021 school year. I believe we should not change because of all the other changes this year, such as how the coronavirus has impacted schools. We need some consistency. We can change in the 2021-22 school year. And I also think that with all the stress coming from the coronavirus, we don't need more stress. Keep the administrators the same this year and then change next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. And if you could just state your name and then you can begin to speak.
Hi, my name is Bronwyn Bedient, and I'm the proud parent of 2 Orangewood students, including the last person you just heard from. I understand the need to change personnel, to move talented administrators around, and I can speak that Angela Nader is one of those talented administrators. We came to Orangewood Elementary from another district school 3 years ago, and I've been really impressed with the cultures that she has created at Orangewood. It's a place where students of all ethnicities, of all social backgrounds can come and succeed. I can understand why you'd want to take her to another school and to use her talents there. But as my daughter just stated, this is not the time for such changes, and we really need to provide the consistency in leadership, especially as we haven't made the decisions about what the school year is going to look like. So I ask that you delay these sort of moves until the following school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, if you could put your card in the basket. And then state your name and you can begin to speak.
Jacqueline Perez. Good afternoon, board. I wanted to read you something from the grand jury that was impaneled by Governor DeSantis on safety. and they had completed their second report in December. Oversight and Sanction Authority. The issue of the school district noncompliance with state level laws has been a persistent problem, even with Florida school districts under heavy scrutiny from several agencies and this grand jury. We have seen more than one instance of noncompliance addressed only once officials from the offending district were brought to testify before these bodies. Even halfway through our tenure, it is clear to us that once our terms end and the threat of public shaming or indictment is no longer on the table, compliance will never be satisfactory. And this is exactly a repeat of what's going on at Lee County School District. You have a wonderful, very well-respected, long-term employee who is being used as a scapegoat. I have information and I have documents that prove that there were issues that other employees did not address. You have a threat assessment team that should have been established early on. There were indicators and statements made where that threat assessment team failed to come forward and address real issues. I don't think the board wants to be embarrassed if these documents are released that your entire school, not one person, your entire district, the system failed these employees. Multiple employees cannot be making mistakes. This was a flawed event system, whatever you want to call it. They don't receive the proper training. You have a teacher who left his room. You have a para who called somebody before she called downstairs. You have a secretary who couldn't take down information properly. You have a bus where the video didn't work. And then you have other employees from that same school. Incidents. Thank you.
Next speaker, please. And blue card in the basket, please. And then you can step forward, state your name, and begin to speak.
Okay, hi, my name is Jennifer Atherton. I'm here on behalf of the Orangewood Elementary principal transfer. I'm just here to say that I do oppose this. I'm going to keep it brief. I wasn't planning on speaking today. I have my kids. I appreciate very much the district's efforts to, lift up schools. And I understand that it would be a really great opportunity for Edgewood Elementary to have a principal like Principal Nader. However, at this difficult time, I think it would leave Orangewood's students very vulnerable. It is a Title I school. She's done great work. She still has a lot to do. They need consistency next year after such an unprecedented time in everyone's lives. I think they deserve to have familiar leadership in place, at least for next school year, to guide them and the faculty as well through what will probably be another stressful year for them. So if you could consider just leaving her in place at least through the next school year, we would all really appreciate it. And that's all I have to say. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Madam Chair, that appears to be the last speaker that is in the room. We do have some emails. Pursuant to Executive Order 2069 and the Department of Education Directive dated March 17th, 2020, notice was provided to the public that all public comment will be accepted virtually by email. Virtual submissions of public comment was required to be sent to the email address publiccomment@leeschools.net at least 2 hours prior to this afternoon's meeting and are limited to 3,000 characters or 450 words to be consistent with Board Policy 1.11. No more than, the emails shall be read in the order that they were received. At this time, Madam Chair, I will begin with the email. Derek Baker. My name is Derek Baker. I am absolutely appalled to hear that Vivian Gutierrez is being reprimanded in any way for her actions regarding an armed student that had come to school. I have known Vivian since we were both children, and I have always been amazed at her combination of compassion and courage. It took both of these qualities for her to have been able to steer a potentially horrible incident into a peaceful outcome. I cannot understand what possible violation of policy she could have committed that would outweigh the benefit of preventing a potentially deadly terror event. By reprimanding her and demoting her, instead of holding her up in honor, you send the message that she should have followed whatever petty rule that you have decided she violated. rather than act courageously and for the benefit of others. Your actions give the perception that she is being punished for saving lives. Any reasonably moral or sane individual would expect praise to be applied for such action. The district should be proud that Vivian Gutierrez prevented the school and district from becoming nationally infamous for allowing yet another school shooter to go unnoticed. Furthermore, in this age of unreasonable conspiracy theories, it is irresponsible for the district to capitalize, not uncapitalize, consider that this action by the district, capitalize, may uncapitalize, be construed as though the system would have capitalized, rather uncapitalized, a negative outcome had been the end result. This gives unreasonable fuel to fake news outlets and propaganda agencies. In order to stay ahead of the fake news conspiracy theorists, it would be best for the district to offer praise of some sort to Vivian Gutierrez instead of a reprimand. Juliet Long. Once again, I reach out to you to address the situation that transpired at Harns Marsh Middle School, December 2019. There is desperate need to implement much needed policies and training for staff to ensure student safety. Acknowledging the problem is the beginning of this resolution, as one board member admitted that the training is not sufficient. Having 37 known possession of weapons in one school year clearly presents a desperate need for improved policies. The actions of Mrs. Vivian Gutierrez on this school day in December 2019 needs to be recognized as commendable and saved lives. Please do the right thing by reinstating her as assistant principal, and by doing so, you are making a strong and needed step in the direction of improving the safety of children. Ruthie Lohmeyer. My name is Dr. Ruthie Lohmeyer, and after 35 years, I will be retiring. I would like to thank the following people. The Buckingham family, because of the past 6 years, it has been the greatest joy of my career. Mary Fisher for supporting me for over 20 years. Ms. Gittens for attending every event she was invited to at BESC. Brian Mangan, Teresa Bowen, Amy Burke, Ms. Gittens for attending our drive-by graduation. Clayton Simmons and the high school principals for accepting me into the group. Brian Mangan for immediately putting us on the 4 surveys Buckingham was left off of. Scott Cook and Riverdale for the many partnerships over the past 6 years. Susan Johnson for being one of the sweetest people I have ever met. Please approve Dr. Vicki Gohagan Mosley as the new principal of Buckingham. Suzanne L. Koger. I'm writing in regard to the punitive action taken against Harns Marsh Middle School Assistant Principal Vivian Gutierrez. Her decision to disarm a student saved lives, plain and simple. I believe her demotion was unwarranted, as there is no specific written rule or regulation that outlines how her judgment was determined to be egregious, breach of district protocol. Ms. Gutierrez should be capitalized, commended, uncapped, not condemned, for her actions when a student brought not only a loaded weapon to school, but the plans to carry out mass murder. I suggest that this is the time when the board should consider the real-time responses and provide written guidelines so that no other administrator has to make the same choice. Please give this matter the consideration that it surely warrants. Vivian Gutierrez, in the type of administrator we need, capitalize more uncapped of in Lee County. Thank you for the courtesy of your time and consideration. Barbie Mitchell. I am writing as a grandparent to urge you to take action regarding the policy and procedure in the event of weapons or a shooting situation in schools. Safety of students and staff should be a priority. In the situation with Vivian Gutierrez, a lack of policy has cost her a position she has worked for her entire life to achieve. Due to a lack of training, she acted in the best way she knew how to save the students in her charge. And save them is exactly what she did. I am urging you to take the necessary steps to fully train and educate your faculty and staff on how to proceed should this happen again. I am also urging you to reconsider reinstating her to her full position as assistant principal. She is a caring and dedicated leader who deserves to be honored for her actions. The very least you should do is take this opportunity to improve and expand all safety procedures in the school system immediately. Deborah Spiller. Vivian Gutierrez is a hero. This is a woman with a courageous spirit that put herself in jeopardy in order to protect the safety of students and staff. Vivian is a leader who needs to not only work in the schools, but definitely be in an authoritative position. My children would benefit to take refuge under her care and supervision. There is a lack in Lee County School Board policy and training for staff for situations like the one at Harns Marsh Middle School. Faculty are asked to follow some unseen rules that haven't been written yet. Vivian made the best decision she could in the circumstances that possibly saved the lives of many on campus. Please make the right decision to reinstate her position. Philip Genther. The district claims that Vivian Gutierrez violated policy. I would like to address three of them and why they are either irrelevant or were not violated. Principles of professional conduct is about ethics. It prohibits discrimination, causing embarrassment to students, and making reasonable efforts to protect students from any type of harm. She protected everyone from harm when she took a gun off a student. Policy 2.03 discusses how to handle trespassers. The student was not a trespasser. Also, once the gun was discovered, he was immediately put into police custody. Policy 2.11 requires safety concerns to be reported. The policy does not state how long after the safety issue is discovered that it must be reported. Nevertheless, as soon as she found out that the student had an actual gun, she did report it to the SRO, the principal, and the communications department. Also, nothing in this policy states that an administrator is prohibited from responding themselves. This needs to be resolved. Erica Peterson. From the last board meeting, it was clear that there was a lack of training and not clear enough guidelines in preparation for a gun in a student's possession. I have not heard any plans to add to procedures, provide training, or reinstate Vivian Gutierrez's position based on her acting under a situation not listed in procedures/policies. You should be focused on training, policies, and preventing guns from entering a school in the first place, not reprimanding a teacher for risking her life to protect her students. As a parent, I would expect every means necessary to protect my child and her classmates from this danger. If teachers are going to continually be reprimanding for stopping these types of incidents, then parents should be rethinking their decisions to enroll their children in the Lee County school system. Belinda Avery Lang, please explain with transparency the way the investigation was handled. It was not complete and thorough. Please explain with transparency the detailed procedure in place that you say did not happen. Please show me how the training for the procedure was conducted. I understand there is no detailed training for this situation. Do not punish and take it out on the one who did the absolute right thing. She should have been awarded. I completely disagree with the decision to demote Vivian Gutierrez for her heroic act handling and diffusing the situation at Harns Marsh School in December 2019. She acted responsibly in every way. This does not make sense. Let her keep her position, do the right thing. Erica Ginther. The school district claims Vivian Gutierrez violated policy. I would like to address two of them and why they are completely irrelevant. Policy 5.02 deals with general requirements for appointment or employment. It deals with having the proper qualifications, good moral character. Stopping a school shooting is the epitome of having good moral character. Policy 5.26 deals with professional standards. Again, this concerns ethics, retaining high education standards. It is completely unrelated to responding to an inactive shooter situation. Additionally, there has been no training on how to handle the situation that occurred at Harns Marsh. The school board needs to fill this safety gap and reinstate Vivian Gutierrez to assistant principal at Harns Marsh Middle School. Carol Benson. I'm asking that the district rescind a previous decision and return Vivian Gutierrez to the position of assistant principal at Harns Marsh Middle School. It took a combination of compassion and courage for her to have been able to steer a potentially horrible incident into a peaceful outcome. I am proud of her swift action, which kept children safe. Where is the training for staff in the use of district protocol for this situation? Does district policy even address this particular situation? If not, it should be included. Our schools need effective, caring leaders that will put children first. Vivian Gutierrez is such a leader our children can look up to and model. Maxine Benson. Please reinstate Vivian Gutierrez as assistant principal at Harns Marsh Middle School. I am proud of her swift action that kept children safe. Isn't that the peaceful outcome you sought? If you need to update district policy to address this particular situation, then do so. Train staff in its use. Do not rob children of loving, effective leaders that set examples for our children to model. Vivian Gutierrez is such a leader. Please reinstate Vivian Gutierrez to her former position. Kaylin Lee. I am deeply disappointed in the actions upheld by the Lee County School Board in their untimely and unjust decision to remove Mrs. Gutierrez from her former position as the assistant principal for Harns Marsh Middle School. I grew up with the Gutierrez family for many years, and Mrs. Gutierrez, along with her husband, have always been upstanding citizens who went out of their way to care for those in their community. When I think of an assistant principal, I think of a leader who will do everything in their power to protect the lives of their students. I was dumbfounded to discover that instead of receiving praise and accolades for her swift actions, she was penalized and ultimately betrayed. With everything going on in our nation, I was proud to hear of the role she played that day. I implore you to ask every parent whose child attends Harns Marsh if they would have rather that Ms. Gutierrez had not acted quickly, but instead lay idle to the information presented before her. In dire situations such as these, you are fighting against the clock and every second counts. In this regard, I can confidently state that each parent is forever grateful for her actions. If you truly believe that our children are the future, then we need to give them the tools they need to succeed, which is inclusive of a safe and secure learning environment. Concerned citizen. My comments are with regards to ethics in education policy that is being proposed. A few board members have made the comment that there are concerns with how investigations are being conducted. How are a realtor and a couple of retired teachers experts in how investigations are done? What are the concerns of the board members? Is the concern with the way the investigations are being handled or with the outcome of the investigation? I would assume that if there was a concern with the way the investigations were being done, a complaint would have been raised by the representative of the employee, the union, or their attorney, and would have been brought to the attention of the appropriate individuals. In addition, I would assume the chief of legal counsel would have brought up the concerns as well if there were violations or concerns with the way the investigations were being handled. The only complaints thus far seem to be coming during public comment or board members as a result to the outcome of an investigation. Speaking of the chief legal counsel, why didn't he or someone from his legal department write this policy rather than the director of compensation and labor relations? Can the board provide me more specifics regarding the concerns? If there have been violations or unethical practices, then let it be known. If there is data to show the number of investigations where there have been concerns with the way they were investigated, please provide. If the concerns are the outcome results, then a policy is not the answer. Rather, inquire as to how the outcome was determined instead of creating a new policy and essentially stating in a public meeting that there is no trust with how investigations are done and by whom. In addition, as stated at last week's workshop regarding the ethics in education policy, Why is it so long? There is no other policy of this length. There is also no other policy that details step by step what is going to occur. As stated, the board is responsible for the what, and the superintendent and his staff are responsible for the how. Is that time, Mr. Eldon? Thank you. Rod Benson. I take a moment today to remind you that as the board, you have ultimate responsibility to oversee and direct the actions of the district's administration. Being that you have failed to reverse this injustice or opine on the circumstances at hand, it would seem that you are ignoring this situation. Vivian effectively diffused an event that could have gone horribly wrong without her decisive actions. You need to reinstate Vivian while you ponder how you as the board will move to create real procedures. Do your job and fix what must be fixed, and appreciate people like Vivian that put themselves in the breach while you fail to create policies, procedures, and training for them to follow. Laura Bollinger. As educators, we experience mistakes all the time. Mistakes we make and mistakes our students make. As educators, we try to teach our students that mistakes are okay if you do three things. 1, admit your mistake. 2, try to fix the mistake. 3, learn from the mistake. The board has made a mistake in demoting Vivian Gutierrez for her actions of disarming a student on Harns Marsh Middle School campus in December 2019. Mistakes are okay if you're willing to correct the mistake. 1, admit you made a mistake. There is not a written policy that she did not follow. 2, fix the mistake. Reinstate her as the vice principal at Harns Marsh Middle School. 3, learn from the mistake. Get the written policy in place and train all personnel on that policy and what to do if a gun is reported capitalized in, uncapped, the school or classroom. Just ignoring the mistake is hurting people that work in the schools. Some are scared about reporting because what is going to happen if we don't do it right? Will we be fired? Madam Chair, that ends the emailed public comments.
Thank you very much. I'll just comment really briefly. First of all, I want to say good luck and Godspeed to Dr. Ruthie Lohmeyer, who has certainly left her legacy in this district and made a difference in the lives of many kids. As parents, grandparents, educators, and business people, the members of this board share the concerns regarding the pandemic and the social unrest and the uncertainty of change in these times. Regarding Vivian Gutierrez's situation, a review is in process, and at this time the board can make no comments or responses due to the investigative review. However, I will say that the safety of students and staff is always our #1 priority. We thank the people from Orangewood who have come to speak and praise Principal Nader for the work she's done, and we wish you all good health and Godspeed in this time of change. And so with that, we will move on to approval of consent action items. Next is the approval of action items in the agenda under consent. The documentation for action items listed under consent is made available to board members 7 business days prior to the board meeting. We are expected to review all the material, and we have an opportunity to speak with the superintendent with any questions we may have regarding the recommendations. Some of these items have also been briefed or workshopped with the board in advance of appearing on the action agenda. Board members, are there any agenda items you wish to pull for discussion under the unfinished business table items portion of the agenda? Ms. Giovanelli?
I have none. None.
Ms. Patrica?
No, thank you.
Ms. Jordan?
I have none, thank you.
Mrs. Gittens.
0241060777. That is not me. I have none. However, I would like to comment that we're getting a lot of changes very close to the meetings, and we do state that we have a chance to review them, and we need to be very aware of the fact that to give us time to review the changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
I have none.
Ms. Morgan?
I have none.
And I have none. Is there a motion to approve the agenda's consent action items? Moved by Mrs. Morgan and seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. Please record your vote, board members. Okay, Ms. Johnson, do we have a total?
I'm waiting for Mrs. Giovanelli.
Okay. Mrs. Giovanelli, unmute. Ms. Giovanelli, can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
Hold on, I got kicked out for some reason, and it's not letting me back in.
Oh.
Do you want?
Yeah, vote for me, but I'm.
Motion carries 7-0.
Motion carries 7-0. Next on the agenda is attorney's recommendations. The approval of the appointment to the Value Adjustment Board. Ms. Dupree-Bruno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Part of the attorney recommendation will be a gentle and friendly reminder to please make sure we state the motion and restate the motion so we can record it properly for the minutes. At this time, I would like to recommend for the Value Adjustment Board the approval of Ms. Kathleen O'Daniel Morgan, as well as Ms. Chris Patrica as the alternate to the Value Adjustment Board, please.
Board members, you've heard the attorney's recommendation that the board approve the appointment of Ms. Kathleen O'Daniel Morgan as the school board member to the Value Adjustment Board with Mrs. Chris N. Patrica as the alternate school board member. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Vaughn and seconded by.
You're going to say it.
Yeah, she should say it.
Should I say it? I move that we approve the appointment of Mrs. Kathleen O'Daniel Morgan and Mrs. Christine N. Patrica to the Value Adjustment Board. Ms. Patrica being the alternate.
Thank you. And a second.
I second it.
Ms. Giovanelli seconds it. Any discussion? Please record your vote, board members.
Motion carries 7-0.
And the motion carries 7-0. Next on the agenda is our public hearings. At this time, Dr. Atkins, will you please present your recommendations for this afternoon's public hearing items?
Okay, we have 3 items this afternoon. The first item is approval of policy 1.27 non-discrimination. The purpose of this adoption is to ensure compliance with all applicable federal and state laws, Florida State Board of Education rules, board policies, administrative rules, procedures, and guidelines. In addition, the proposed adoption promotes transparency and accountability. The second policy is approval to revise the, second item, I'm sorry, is the approval to revise the 2020-2021 Code of Conduct for students, grades pre-K to 5, and the 2020-2021 Code of Conduct for students grades 6 to 12. And then the final one is approval to revise the 2020-2021 Code of Conduct for adult students.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. At this time, the public will be invited to speak on these three items. The time allowed for comment is 3 minutes. Mrs. Dupree-Bruno, do you have any comments that were submitted or persons in attendance in the boardroom who wish to speak?
At this time, Madam Chair, I don't have anyone in the boardroom, but I would ask that we recess for 5 minutes to give the public an opportunity to send an email if they so choose.
Thank you. At this time, we will take a 5-minute recess, board members, and we will return at 4:26. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, at this time, Ms. Dupree Bruno has informed me that she has no comments or emails that were submitted. So I will now close this public hearing and reconvene the regular school board meeting of June 2nd, 2020. Dr. Atkins, one at a time, please restate your recommendation for this afternoon's public hearing items.
Yes, Madam Chair. The first item is approval to adopt policy 1.27, non-discrimination. The purpose of this adoption is to ensure compliance with applicable federal and state laws, Florida State Board of Education rules, board policies, administrative rules, procedures, and guidelines. In addition, the proposed adoption promotes transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be June 3rd, 2020.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approves the adoption of policy 1.27, non-discrimination. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Morgan and seconded.
I move that we approve the adoption of policy 1.27, non-discrimination.
Thank you. And a second? Ms. Debbie Jordan, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please record your vote. Ms. Johnson?
The motion carries 6-0. Mrs. Giovanelli was not back for the vote.
Okay, the motion carries 6-0. Dr. Atkins, would you like to proceed?
Yes, Madam Chair. The next one is approval to revise the 2020-2021 Code of Conduct for Students, grades pre-K to 5, and the 2020-2021 Code of Conduct for Students, grades 6 to 12. Codes of conduct for students are reviewed annually and adopted to provide guidelines that establish the procedures to address inappropriate behavior and ensure a safe and orderly environment for all students and staff. The effective date of this adoption shall be June 3rd, 2020.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the revision of the 2020-21 Code of Conduct for Students, grades pre-K through 5, and the 2020-21 Code of Conduct for Students, grades 6 through 12. Is there a motion to approve? Mrs. Moore.
I move we approve the revision to the 2021 Code of Conduct for Students, grades pre-K through 5, and the 2021 Code of Conduct for Students, grades 6 through 12.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. Any discussion, board members, on the Code of Conduct? Mrs. Patrica.
This is just to piggyback a little bit off of the comments that I made during the briefing meeting as an area that the board could potentially effectuate some change. We don't make the student code of conduct, but we do approve it. So can we look at it with an eye toward whether any of our any aspects of the student code of conduct punish students on the basis of their racial or cultural traditions? This is, when I was talking earlier, I don't think I was really clear about what I hope to achieve in a conversation with the board, and this is one example. I will expand upon these comments later during board member comments, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to use this as an example.
Thank you. Any other discussion, board members? Miss Jordan.
Thank you. I was just my comment would just be that, again, this, the code of conduct was brought before the Student Advisory Board for them to look at. It was brought before the Success Academy students. It was brought to the several different forums that we hosted. I know one was at Kerry Robinson Center. So these have been brought out there so people could look at it and give us their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Gittens.
Yes, thank you. In response to Ms. Patrica's request, I think we need to look, and she had mentioned earlier about workshopping what and how do we include things that we may have overlooked. Because I think about the discipline data, and that's an area that really kind of looks at that cultural bias and diversity and all of that. And do we have enough policy or procedure or whatever to cover that in that area? So I agree that we need to have a workshop to talk about, what is it we need to include? Where do we need to include it? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, board members? Okay, seeing no other comments, then please record your vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
And the motion carries 7-0. The next item, Dr. Atkins, please.
Last item is approval to revise the 2020-2021 Code of Conduct for Adult Students. The Code of Conduct for Adult Students is reviewed annually, like the other codes as well. The effective date of this adoption shall be June 3rd, 2020.
Thank you very much. Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the revision of the 2020-21 Code of Conduct for Adult Students. Is there a motion to approve?
Chair Fisher, I'd like to move that we adopt the superintendent's recommendation and then ask Attorney Dupree-Bruno if that is sufficient.
Okay.
So basically, the motion on the table is just to adopt the superintendent's recommendation as it relates to the Code of Conduct, and that's sufficient because that's the topic that's on the table at this time.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Then thank you. Okay. Moved by Mrs. Patrica and seconded by Ms. Gittens. Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Okay, any discussion on the Code of Conduct for Adult Students? Ms. Gittens.
For the record, I'd just like to say the same as I did for the other one, that we need to workshop and look at for future what we need to do when we're talking behaviors culturally and diversity-wise. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Jordan? Ms. Jordan? Ms. Jordan?
I think our video is frozen.
Oh, I think it is. Okay. Ms. Jordan, can you unmute?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. For some reason, I was frozen there. I was just going to repeat what I had just said for number 2. This has also been one of those that had gone to several of the committees and workshopped, as well as to the community as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Any other discussion, board members? Okay, please record your vote.
Ms. Gittens, are you able to vote? The motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. On now to board members' comments and reports. Okay, Ms. Giovanelli.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to ask, this is actually for Dr. Atkins, if he could please address the change at Orangewood. And, I just want to ask the question, is it a wise time to move and to have this move now? I know I've been getting a lot of calls from actually a couple schools regarding the change, the principal changes. And I just want to make sure that the community understand why the change. So if Dr. Atkins could address that for me, because I know kids like consistency, and so we're trying to do what's best for the district and each school. So if you could just address that, please.
Thank you, Ms. Giovanelli. Dr. Atkins.
Yeah, I'd be happy to address that. I certainly understand the concern of parents. Angela Nader is a remarkable principal, and she has done a fantastic job at Orangewood Elementary. However, I think Orangewood Elementary, is a very strong, very stable school at this point, which is why we want, why we feel this transition can occur from that school to Edgewood. Edgewood has been a school that has always been in and out of differentiated accountability, and it is in a location within the East Zone that makes it very vulnerable to the forces of mobility. And, I think the students and staff there need strong leadership so that we can provide a sustained, academically high achieving environment that would be sustained over a long period of time and not be so fragile. So this is the role and the work of a turnaround principal. And often when we move these people to do these turnaround things, they're very, popular principals that are well thought of by their staffs, but that's why these decisions are difficult, but I think they're in the best interest of students because we have to provide equitable opportunity across all of our districts, which means that we need talented leaders in all of our schools.
Thank you. So lastly for me, I just want to acknowledge this past week's horrific events in Minneapolis, together with too many others occurring around the country, are tragic and heartbreaking. Please know the world is seeing this happen before their very eyes, and they cannot stay silent and deny the injustice as it is real. I want everyone to know that I am committed to fighting against racism and discrimination wherever and however it exists. It starts with acknowledging the wrong in which we must allow to right that wrong. It really can be a simple act. Just start by choosing kindness. As leaders, we can start that right here. Let us lead by example right here on this board. Have a safe and to the staff and everyone, have a safe, I can't talk, got my S's going. Have a safe summer and stay well. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Giovanelli. Mrs. Patrica.
So I would ask for some guidance either from you, Madam Chair, or from Attorney Dupree Bruno. There were some questions brought up during the briefing regarding the pandemic task force, and that was leading to sort of a discussion. Is it appropriate for me to address that now, or should I wait until Ms. Gittens completes her comments and then discuss it then?
Ms. Bruno, I think you can go ahead with your comments. Okay. Bruno?
Yeah, I would agree. This is your opportunity to speak. You were called upon. You can go ahead and make your comments. If you would like to defer those comments until another board member speaks, you can ask the chair for that as well.
Okay, may I defer my comments? Because I really want to hear all of Ms. Gittens' concerns.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And should I should I give my other comments now or wait until, I'll wait for all my comments. I'll defer all of them. Please and
Okay,
thank you.
yeah, yes, fine. So, that being said, then I'll call on Mrs. Gittens now so she can, make her statements and that we all are, understanding the total scope of her concerns. Okay, Mrs. Gittens.
So do you want me to just address this issue?
And this can be your time for board member comments, and if that's, yeah, and that and whatever else you want to.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, I've got several things here that I need to bring up. I know the situation with Ms. Gutierrez is, I don't know if it's under investigation. I don't know what point it's at now. What I am requesting of Dr. Atkins and Attorney Dupree-Bruno and perhaps Mr. Williams, and I have requested this before, we heard from several individuals, just let us know something. I know that there are things happening and that we are working on it, and some things cannot be stated in public. However, for the sake of the public, it does look as though we are just folding our hands and saying nothing. And my request is if there is something that we can say to the public, that we are working on the situation, that there are things happening behind the scenes that we're not privy to state in public, but something to the effect that we are not just ignoring the public. And Oracle, if you all want to respond to that, or if we have to move on.
Ms. Bruno.
Dr. Atkins, would you like me to respond or would you like to respond?
I would be happy to if you'd like. First of all, I want to make sure the public understands that the board has taken no action on this issue. So this is not a board matter at this time. This is a superintendent's matter. My job is to make a recommendation to this board. And, that is, again, I want to make sure that when you are putting forth your comments, that really at this point, it should be directed here rather than at the board. They have not taken action, okay? Secondly, we do listen to public comments and take them very seriously. And we have already embarked upon a review of our process anyway, as it relates to investigations and how matters are decided and how I make recommendations to this board. So that's something that Ms. Dupree-Bruno and I have been working on along with our administrative team and this board. And so with this particular situation, it is of my opinion that this one, like another matter that came before the board or will become before the board, that we put a second step in our process, which is an appeal process. So that is currently what we are working on doing, which potentially could impact my recommendation moving forward. So that's what I want the public to know. I also want the public to know that anytime, regardless of whether it's this situation or another situation, I think these are all learning experiences for us in terms of how we do train administrators as it relates to these items. Our administrators, assistant principals, and principals receive training from safety and security specifically, and Rick Parfit on this particular issue. School staffs are supposed to receive training from their school administrative team and also from the school resource officer regarding how to notify law enforcement, proper notification of law enforcement. So anytime something like this happens, we go back and we're going to review all our training protocols moving forward. So understand that is also happening. There was a lot of discussion regarding policy and relevant policy, and obviously we want to make sure that's reviewed as well. But I think that the most relevant policy in this case is policy 4.08, which is our zero tolerance for school-related crimes. And basically it says local law enforcement authorities shall be notified immediately when one of the offenses listed above is committed on school property. And one of those offenses is possession, use, or sale of any firearm. So I think that's the most relevant. Regardless, all this is under review, and the recommendation from the appeal committee will be provided to me, and I can either accept that or not, and then move that recommendation, whatever my recommendation is, move that forward to the board.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Atkins. I appreciate your response, and I believe that the public and people that have spoken we appreciated hearing from you on that regard, and thank you for that. I had brought up, I think yesterday or whenever it's all running together, about making sure that we have unfinished items on the minutes. We talk about workshops, and we'll workshop this or we'll follow up with this. And I'm requesting again that those items be put under unfinished business, because that way it's right there and we don't have to put it on someone else's list or another list over here. It's right there, and we are all aware of the fact that we did discuss this and we put it off until the next time. And I don't know, and we can find this out later, attorney, if there's some, preclusion as to why we can't do that, then you can let us know. But it, to me, would make things clearer and have one place that we can keep things all together. Another situation that I have noticed
may I just respond to that briefly? We have something that we request a workshop on. We have Ms. Schaefer taking notes and keeping a list of items that are referred to workshops, and it may not happen exactly the next time because, the list is there and grows, but we do have that process. And then I don't know from Attorney Bruno if we can put a workshop request item under unfinished business, which is usually reserved for the consent agenda. So I'm not sure about that.
I think that's two different things. With regards to the action meeting, we can certainly table things and have it come back up and discuss. If we're referring to the workshop, a board member can simply ask that we go ahead and readdress an issue that was not resolved last time. So I think what Ms. Giddens is saying is to document it in some fashion to make sure that we know that we need to come back to this particular topic. And I believe what the chair is saying is that Ms. Schaefer is actually starting to document those things to make sure that they do come back. Is that my understanding, Chair? So I think there's a process in place that they will be documenting these items and bring it back. I think that's
okay. And I will say that I'm sorry. Okay, when I was chairable, can you hear me?
You're buffering.
Am I?
If the rest of us can mute, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me yet?
It's not stable.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me plug this in once more.
Thank you.
Is that any better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I know when I was chair last year, I know that Ms. Schaefer does keep a list. I'm just saying that something that the rest of us could see is what I'm talking about. I kept a list as well, but if we just had one place that there was a list that we could see that this item and this item, because sometimes there may be something that we decide, okay, we don't need to do that. And if we requested it, we take it off. But anyway, we can discuss it later.
I'll work on it with Mrs. Johnson.
Okay. The question that I've had about our meetings, it was decided as a board that everybody wanted to have meetings on one week and not have meetings every week. So that's fine. So we moved them all to the same week. But I'm finding it very difficult that every meeting is pushed so tight up against the next meeting that we are not, we're more often than not getting our work done and coming to conclusions. Almost every meeting where we're running out of time, so we'll have to stop this. And at least previously, we had workshops where like 9 to 12 or, 10 to 1, and we had time to do it. I would suggest that on the Monday, we take that day, if that's one of our meeting days, and do workshops in the morning and briefings in the afternoon. Our briefings are always running up against our action meetings, so we don't get through or everything is rushed through. So I would like to suggest that it still keeps everything on the 2 days, and it would give us more time and not feel like we're rushed, but I throw that out to everyone. Regarding the task force, the reopening task force, I mentioned briefly that I am concerned about 70 survey questions. I have received messages and comments from parents that got through the first, 5 or 10 and said, I don't have time, I'll have to come back and do this. And we all know that the propensity to go back and do that is probably not going to happen, which makes me concerned of the response that we get. I would have liked to have had an opportunity to suggest with the survey that we have, and I did say maybe 4 or 5 questions, and then if parents were willing to do more, they could say, you can contact me afterwards for other information. It's very daunting to a lot of our parents, and I am not sure that they're going to finish it. What I was discussing, and I would like to say to Ms. Vaughn, I was not accusing you, Ms. Vaughn, of anything. And if you had listened, I did not say your name. I was stating that originally, Ms. Patrica had brought the proposal to the board. We discussed it, and it stopped with the superintendent was going to bring back a list of potential members for the committee. And that was brought about because I know personally, I said, I hope that we don't have a committee of the same people that are always on our committees and always on our task force, and that we dig deeper to get some of the people that are involved in these situations. And between that time, it was taken off the table. And it was my understanding that Ms. Patrica said that the superintendent should use the current task force of staff and chiefs that he already had. That's what I take concern with, because it has gone on, and the only thing we did was to appoint our liaison. That's the only thing that we did. We did not have an opportunity to say, I know this person in my district would make a good person on this committee. I know that this student would make a good person on this committee. All of that was done for us. And that's the part that I don't appreciate. We were totally removed from the whole situation. And as it is an advisory board, we actually have policies about advisory boards that when they are formed, that this is how we handle them. We all have input, and we all have not and did not have input. And I was told on occasion, every time I would bring it up, well, Ms. Vaughn is our liaison. I am totally aware of that. But that is not my concern. My concern is that there is no input from this board as a whole to that process. So that was my concern. And I'm not sure why it was shifted and why we were left out of the whole decision. But anyway, that was my decision, my thing on that. Next, a happy thing. I did take part in the Buckingham exceptional graduation. And I can tell you, standing outside with masks on is no fun. It's hot. But it was a really fun time. I think we had 8 or 10, I believe, students that drove through by the building, and they got gifts and all of that. And it is always the most touching thing to me with Buckingham Exceptional. And I hope everyone realizes some of those students are there for a very, very long time. And we had students that graduated this year that had been there almost 20 years. And to listen to the parents and to think the anguish in this one mother's voice was, I don't know what we're going to do now. I mean, they have to look for another option for taking care of their child and helping them to be the best that they can be. So if you ever have the opportunity to visit, to participate with Buckingham Exceptional School, it is life-changing and heart-wrenching to participate in working with those students. The last part of what I have to say, where did I put it, is to talk about the things that are going on in our community, in our world, in our nation right now, with the diversity or lack thereof and the issues that are happening. I had a talk with a couple of students this week as well, and they sent me a letter and asked would I read their letter, and I said yes, I would. And then I have one other thing to say after this. Hello, Lee County School District Board members, and this is written by one student. My name is Melanie Pena. I attended the board meeting where we discussed the block schedule. I have since stayed up to date with the meetings and agendas, your decisions, and so I wanted to let you know how we're feeling. The online school process has been difficult for many, especially those at a disadvantage. I hope our district can learn and grow from this situation. Many were calling the question the district's plan in case a lockdown, when the lockdown finally happened. The response felt a bit unprepared. Teachers were given days to prepare for transition. There was no consistent procedure from school to school with handling certain things. I hope you consider children who have issues at home, may not be able to dedicate as much time to school online, and students that have trouble connecting online, gathering supplies and they need for certain projects. Now more than ever, students are counting on you, our leaders, to help us. In these times, we need open-minded people who are open to change and diversity. With everything going on right now, with our generation rising up for change, I hope you rise with us. We are asking for change, we're asking for diversity, and we're asking for your support. Thank you. And my final comments at this time when everybody is focused on what to do and difference, and it's right in our face, and it's hard. And I know as a parent of a Black male child who lives thousands of miles away, it is very difficult to wonder, is he next? Is there something that he may do that may, cause something to happen to him? And I went back and pulled out of the file when we had our first diversity and managing unconscious bias training. And I wanted to remind you of the things that you said in your evaluations, and they're very short. And it was interesting, it was 8-person governance team, but we only received 5 responses, and I will read those very quickly. And the question at the end was, what have you learned and how effective was this workshop? And the first one says, more communication, continue trying to help others learn and understand diversity. The next, I learned that I have been correct about the narrow views of some board members and that their agendas are deeply ingrained. Next, adds another dimension to our work as a board. Next, taking time to pause, listen, and building relationships will provide a better awareness and understanding and contributing to the board business. We could use the quadrants for strategic planning purposes. I think I have to learn how to accept that facts don't matter when people's feelings are at stake. Those are our responses. I thank you, and my heart goes out and my prayers to all the families that are hurting right now, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I will double back to Mrs. Patrica now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so in terms of, I wanted to respond to something.
Okay, hold on a second. Mrs. Morgan is asking us to.
I think before Ms. Patrica responds to Ms. Gittens, it would be helpful if she heard all of our responses.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. That's a great suggestion. Is that okay with you, Ms. Patrica? Okay, she's a thumbs up. Okay, so someone else is agreeing with that too. Okay, so at this point, I will move on to Ms. Jordan.
I just wanted to make sure these are still the regular comments, not specific responses, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
These are board member comments. Ms. Jordan,
Thank you. And yes, sure. I'm not sure what I'm not going to speak on what Ms. Gittens had spoke about, but I do want to, I have heard a few things about the surveys from different families and the concern about it was being persuasive. But I'm just trying to get everybody that does contact me to please to fill that out so that way we get all the information and we can put it together. But I do want to make, and I'm trying to find it, I never make statements, and I never, wanted to be, I'm just going to read this. I would just like to make a statement. Due to some of the comments I have been hearing and reading about my colleagues and myself, just because we do not make public statements for the records does not mean that we are not working for the community, the children, the teachers and staff, etc. Matter of fact, that is what we all do every day. It is not an 8 to 5 job. So I just wanted to make it clear and on the record that we all care and we take great pride in what we do. It takes all 7 voices to get the job done, not just 2. And I just wanted to put that out there because I believe sometimes people get the misperception that there's only certain people that are working for them. And I want everybody to understand that we are all here for everyone in this community. And we do take it serious when people come to us and we do listen to what they have to say. And that is for all people. We listen to all of them. And that is my comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Okay, Ms. Vaughn.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to extend my apologies to Ms. Gittens if obviously I misunderstood what she was saying during the workshop, and I can say that I take my position that I was elected to as a board liaison to the task force very seriously, and so I took it as directed to me, and let that be known that I will always be making reports, and as far as some of the other issues, that needs to be directed to the superintendent's office. I love when we have discussions, and it seems like I'm guessing because we can't do this because of sunshine regulations, but it seems like our comments are becoming full-blown discussions, and so this is Dupree Bruno. Maybe at some point you can weigh in on that, although that just makes for another discussion. So what can I say? I too, I love the way Mrs. Giovanelli expressed her feelings about what's happening, the civil unrest throughout the nation. I know we had a peaceful demonstration here. My younger daughter has lived in Atlanta for a little over a year. And so that night until like after 1 o'clock in the morning, she was texting her sister and I about what was happening about 10 minutes from where she lived. And, you worry about those things, but, watching it throughout the nation, all I can say is education. And it's not, I think we showed that we have a long way to go in Lee County. We showed this during the workshop, having one class, one semester class at Dunbar. And I think all of us from the comments that I heard during the workshop really are in favor of seeing the kinds of things that our children need to learn, probably, age appropriate right from the start. And again, it needs to be embedded, and it doesn't need to be, this is Black History Month. And by the same token, this is the month that we talk about Hispanics, and hey, it's Cinco de Mayo. And I mean, that's just surface stuff. And so we need to really dedicate ourselves, but it's not just Lee County. Obviously, from seeing all across the nation, north, south, central part of the U.S., obviously starting in Minneapolis, it's the children, and I hate to say it, and the adults that need to have a little bit more education. And I just pray that I saw beautiful pictures today. I was watching MSNBC before this workshop, the pictures of the police that throw down any protective police gear that they have and march arm in arm with peaceful demonstrators, and some of the wonderful comments that have been made. So I dearly hope that we can come to healing across the nation. And finally, speaking of healing, teachers, it's one more day. Of course, it's not going to be quite like my typical last day at school, when we would say, it was kind of like the old, who sings that? It's some hard, school's out for summer, that song, and running out of the building, that sort of thing. But So it really, seriously, it's really different this year. And as I said, I take my job very, very seriously in being on the task force, and we have staff that will be doing the presentations and will be weighing in on these, and I'll be reporting. And of course, anybody in the community, including the board, can be watching, or opportunities for participation. But it is it's going to be quite the task to open school next year, and that's best wishes to everyone on a great summer. And sorry, parents, that a lot of those summer camps aren't open, because I know my daughter was just waiting for the summer camp for my grandson, the camp he's gone to for 2 years, and he'll be home, as will so many of our kids. So thank you, and those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Morgan?
First of all, I want to thank Ms. Jordan for her comments regarding how difficult it is to sit at the board table and listen to members of the public talk about things that weigh heavily on their hearts. And we're really not in a position to respond until we've had an opportunity to look for inconsistencies or discrepancies that we need to address, and then provide a response. So I appreciate her making that comment. With respect to the task force, I guess I'm out of the
Morgan, I think it was
the students task force. Not frozen on my screen.
Okay.
Can you guys not hear me?
I can hear you now.
Am I back? Okay. With respect to the task force, I think I may have missed something, because it was my understanding or my impression that the task force was the superintendent's task force, and that the board had a conversation about the need for a task force and directed the superintendent to create the task force and then come back and report to the board about the task force and the work that it was doing. So I'm just like really not understanding some of this concern that we're not intimately involved. This is not, in my opinion, a board advisory committee. It's a superintendent advisory committee. And I need to be straightened out maybe. With respect to the death of Mr. Lloyd, what an incredible tragedy. Here we are again as a nation and as a community and as a world talking about something that we need to talk about. And I agree with my colleagues who say that we need to find a way in Lee County School District to have serious conversations at all levels of our education spectrum to talk about this. So I appreciate the ideas that have been brought forward, and I look forward to hearing the conversations that follow. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. Okay. At this time, we'll go back to Ms. Patrica.
So, Ms. Morgan, you said exactly what I was going to say about the task force. The composition of the task force is the how, not the what. We directed the superintendent to create a task force. He's done that. And it is, I mean, literally, the task force is meant to advise the superintendent. That is the purpose. A board advisory committee is different. That's when we decide. And you know, I went back and I watched our discussion, and there was almost unanimous agreement that this should be a staff-focused advisory committee, which means the superintendent, not the board. So in addition to being updated in writing and via email, I have been updated, I don't know how many times in my one-on-ones with the superintendent. So I have not felt out of the loop about this at all. This is not a criticism. This is not a criticism. This is simply an expression of my perspective as a board member that sits in my seat about how this played out. And, you know, in terms of the survey, again, that's process. We don't write the survey. We don't decide what questions are in the survey. We decide after the survey is completed and after we're into the reopening process, the effectiveness of the survey, but we don't get to put that survey together. That's not the board's job. That's the what. I'm sorry, that's the how, not the what. So I get a little bit concerned when we get into process, because we are not, as board members, supposed to be creating process. Ms. Vaughn, Alice Cooper, schools out for, I would sing, but it would bum all of you out. Schools out for summer. When that song came out, I said summer as summer. So schools out for summer, because I lived in Massachusetts. And Ms. Vaughn, in discussing the events taking place across the nation, you said it's not just Lee County, and you're absolutely right. But what can we do in our little tiny corner of the world, right here in Lee County, in our tiny little, I would argue that education has tremendous influence over a community. What can we do? I think we can look at policy. I think we can look at our strategic plan. I think we can look at, as Ms. Gittens mentioned earlier, the data coming out of student discipline and determining whether it's sufficient. But we can't do that without a conversation. And I think I've heard unanimous support here to make sure that this is a workshop topic. And the last thing I'll say is, two more things. Superintendent Atkins, when you responded to Principal Nader, I remember that experience very, very clearly. Do you remember when I first joined the board in 2016 and you ripped Principal Mayer out of Bonita Middle? And I was brand new to the board and I chose Bonita Middle because of Ms. Mayer, and now you are taking her away from me to put her at a different school that needed a turnaround principal. Well, you told me to trust you, and I did. And my experience at Bonita Middle after that time was absolutely fantastic. And I have the same confidence in the replacement leadership at Orangewood. But I get it. I understand when you feel that close to a principal and there's such a sense of community, it can feel like the leader that's leaving is the key to all of that. But what hasn't been part of the conversation is what that principal has done in order to allow that culture to live beyond her presence in the school. And that's what makes a great turnaround principal. And I think that's where we're headed there. And my last statement, I guess, is Ms. Gittens, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you have not felt heard by me, I am sorry. And what I want, I can't walk in your shoes and you can't walk in my shoes. And unless we have conversations, we can't figure it out. What I will tell you is that it's really hard. It's really, really hard to sit and reflect and think, how have I contributed to this? How have I been wrong? And sort of coming to the realization that I'm a big part of the problem. That's a very difficult thing for me as a human being to go through. But what I would suggest is that we not focus on each other in this, and instead focus on how we as a governing body can move this district forward and effectuate change for our community. Because we don't matter. None of us matter. What matters is the kids and the community that we're impacting through our decision making. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have 2 hands raised. So Ms. Giovanelli?
And I'll just be real quick. I just had a question since the task force thing came back up is, clarity, if we could get clarity on that, exactly, is it Dr. Atkins's task force or is it the board's? And then my second thing would be, is this going to be videoed like all the other advisory boards are? And I think that would be real helpful, only because I think that we can all see that later and once they start having their meetings and that kind of thing. And I think it would be really transparent for the community. And that would be my recommendation, but it's just me. So I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gittens?
Ms. Fisher, I know you haven't given your comments. Do you want me to finish, or you want to give your comments first? It's up to you.
I was going to let you finish and then make my comments to wrap up, because we do have another meeting after this.
First off, what I said in the last meeting in the workshop is that, you know, we continue to ask the question, what can we do? How can we fix it? And like I said in the last meeting, I'm here. I do know ways and thoughts and suggestions to fix it. But when I am always, and please don't take this as I'm whining, but I am dismissed. I am told the next item on the agenda is, and I will make a statement and there is no discussion about it. Let's just move on. We're running out of time. I am here. I am filled with experiences. I am filled with the knowledge of how to help with this as my purpose in being here. More likely than not, those suggestions are met with, well, that's not your lane. I have been told since day one of being on this board that I need to stay in my lane. I have been embarrassed in public on more than one occasion by not in my lane.
Mrs. Gittens, you're buffering.
Okay. Can you hear me yet? Let me just do this. Hold on.
Madam Chair, I just have one.
Is that any better?
Yes, hold on just 1 second, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Bruno has a comment.
I think that there's a recommendation that we have a workshop to address some of these concerns. I have a concern because we have a 505 that was noticed to the public, and it's way past 505.
Yes.
So I do believe that we probably need to flush some of this out, and we can do that through a workshop. But at this time, if we can just finalize the rest of the comments so we can get to the other meeting, please.
All right, I will save the rest of what I have to say about this situation. However, the task force is something that I did have input that would help with the diversity, and it was printed as I spoke with him about it, and comments and thoughts to make things different and better just don't happen. So.
And Ms. Gittens, we are, they are in the process of scheduling a workshop for next week. And so we'll make sure that we build in enough time for you to complete your comments. I'm going to be very brief. I think that the members of this board all care about the public. I think we are all here with the same heart. I think we are all equally affected by the changing times, by the social unrest that takes place right across our country. And there are so many things that we can do about it. One of the things we can do is to really come together, as John Lennon wrote in his song. I wanted to thank all of our staff members for the work that they have done these last several months, and the sacrifices that they have made, and just wish you all the best of health and an ability to find some peace and rest as we move forward to planning to reopen our schools. I would like to say that the virtual graduations are historical in a way. And when I had the opportunity to attend my tapings, the students were amazing and so prophetic and so accepting of their situation, with a lot of wisdom beyond their years, with suggestions of ways to move forward. And I hope that we, as educated adults, can be that same mindset. I want to say that before we can take care of other people, we have to take care of ourselves. And so I hope that we all find the time to do that. It's an honor to serve as your chair. And I'll close with one of my favorite quotes by Gandhi: "Be the change you wish to see in the world." So at this point, I have no further comments, and I will ask Attorney Dupree Bruno if she has any comments at this time.
Very, very briefly. I had an opportunity to watch the State of the Schools virtually, and with the theme Stronger Together with Dr. Atkins this week, and I was so impressed by everything that is happening in this district. And the beautiful rendition of This Is Me from The Greatest Showman from Cypress Lake High School was just the icing on the cake, and that is one of my absolute favorite songs. Many things we can't control, but there is a possibility with the awesome responsibility to not only educate, but to help form the character of our students, to include showing kindness and acceptance, and to send them on their way singing, "This is me, this is us, stronger together." I hope all of our kids have a great summer. Congratulations to the class of 2020. And I'll be working throughout the entire summer, so have a good time.
Thank you, Ms. Bruno. I'm Dr. Atkins.
And I will try to be brief, and I will cut many of my comments short because we are well long, but unfortunately, I've got a lot of information I wish I was able to convey, because there's a lot going on in the district that I think our public needs to know, but we'll find other ways to get that information out there. Relative to, first of all, let me cover this, appointments this evening. I failed to stop for that. Eugene Forniker, Director, Internal Audit. Congratulations. Carol Frank is moving from Edgewood Academy Principal to Early Childhood Learning Services Principal. Sharice Trent from Edison Park to Tice Elementary as Principal. And then we've mentioned Angela Nader from Orangewood Elementary to Edgewood Academy as Principal. Some new folks that I'm really happy about. Matt Miller, Assistant Principal, Dunbar High School, has been appointed this evening to Cypress Lake Middle School Principal. Congratulations, Matt. Mason Clark, Edgewood Academy Assistant Principal to Principal, Three Oaks Middle School. Carol Wolke, Student Services Assistant Principal on assignment, now Varsity Lakes Middle Principal. And Vicki Gohagan Mosley, Tice Elementary Assistant Principal, and excited to see her nominated and recommended for the and approved to the Buckingham Exceptional Center as Principal. So congratulations to them. Again, I do appreciate the support with the Pre-K-12 Education Pandemic Response Task Force. It is a Superintendent Advisory Committee similar to the Superintendent Roundtable and the Teacher Advisory Committee. So these are committees that I asked for to get advice. And I'm looking forward to their input, because we've got a lot of extremely important decisions that are going to be out there. We are going to, because it is a superintendent committee, I get to say in terms of videotaping, and the answer to that is we will do that. That is a big yes, that we will do that so that we can continue to inform our public, because it is going to be very, very, very important for us to get out in front of the public quite a bit over the course of the summer and communicate our plans, and us also get feedback. That's why, again, I appreciate the support with the board advisory committees. That's important. I appreciate the committee, the support of this task force. That's important. The surveys are also important. We can always work on those, in terms of how we put those out there. But here's, some good news that I did have sent to me. We do have a number of those surveys that have come back, 19,000 responses. So 19,000 responses. And as I think I indicated to you earlier, we have a lot of people that want to get back to school. However, obviously some concerns out there relate to things like making sure that we're keeping our schools very, very clean, that we're adhering to guidelines, and that type of feedback. And we'll continue to get that feedback as we go, of course, throughout the summer, because I think perceptions and change, and also CDC guidelines and things like that will also potentially change. And we'll continue to get a lot of great ideas, I think, from our partners at the Department of Health and Department of Education, which have been very helpful for us in putting all of this together. So that's the end of my comments for now. We'll say congratulations to the students and all that a little bit later and through different ways and throughout the remainder of the week. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adkins, and your team for all the work. Okay, at this time, I want to announce that on Monday, June 22nd, there's a board workshop at 1 p.m. And on Tuesday, June 23rd, there will be a briefing meeting at 1, followed by an action meeting at 3 p.m. At this point, having no other business to come before this board, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Ms. Jordan and seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. Please record your vote. And next, our 5:05 scheduled meeting is about a half hour late, our special meeting. So Mr. Eldon, do we have to get out of this, leave this meeting and come into another one?
No, ma'am, you may stay in this meeting, but if we could, we'd like to recess for 5 minutes to reset the control room, please.
Fine, thank you. Okay, so Ms. Johnson, did the vote carry?
7-0. Everybody will need to get out of the box and log back in.
Everybody will need to what?
Log out of board docs and log back in.
Okay, all right, everybody will need to go out of board docs and log back in for a different agenda. Okay, all right. Motion carries 7-0. This meeting is adjourned. See you guys in 5 minutes. Thank you.